Welcome back, my lovely third graders. I know that it has been forever since we had our last flipped video. Well, here we go. We're going to jump into our brand new unit, and we're going to be talking about fractions today. There's going to be several questions that we need to ask. One of those is, what on earth does a fraction look like? Number two is, why do we need fractions? And number three is, what are the parts of my fractions? So we're going to jump into this. We're going to look at some of these pieces, and then we'll be ready to use them when we come back. So today, my I can statement for today is going to be, I can divide a whole into equal parts and represent the portions with a fraction. So as we get started, that will make a lot more sense, but we're going to be looking at dividing a whole piece into many parts, and then we're going to denote a fraction or a value to each of those parts. So here we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a circle. And I hope that you are drawing a circle on your paper as well. Now, obviously, my circle is not perfect, but we're going to get it as close as we can so that we can really understand our fractions. Now, if I have my circle, and let's say, for Thanksgiving, I have 4 people come over. So I divide my pie into 4 pieces. Now, isn't it going to be really important that I make sure every single person at my table has the same amount of pie? How many of you have ever been sitting at the table and you had to argue with your brother over who got the best piece, right? Okay, so we're going to make sure that all these pieces are exactly the same so there's no fighting, because it's Thanksgiving. I don't want to be fighting on my Thanksgiving dinner, okay? So now, how many pieces do I have total in my pie now? If you said 4... you were correct. I have 4 pieces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, right? Okay. Now, if I have only 1 piece, how much of that pie did I actually eat? I would have eaten 1 out of 4 pieces. And this is where our fractions come in. So each of these is really worth a certain fraction. Okay, so let's talk about the parts of a fraction. So a fraction is going to have 3 main components, okay? The first component is going to be, and I'm going to make my pen just a little bit thicker, okay? The first component is going to be the number that goes on top, okay? And that is going to be called my numerator. Okay? And that's the number of pieces that I actually use, okay? Then I'm going to have a line, okay? And then below that will be my denominator. Okay? So I want you to say numerator for me. Numerator. And I want you to say denominator, denominator. Okay, and this whole thing composes my fraction. Okay, so this whole thing will be my fraction. Now, what is my denominator? How do I get that quantity? Well, my denominator is how many pieces are there total. So I'm basically going to be reading this. You know how when we had multiplication, we had 3 times 4 equals, and we read this sign as groups of? Okay, well now we're going to read this little line as out of. Okay, so instead of it being groups of, it's going to be out of. So instead I'm going to say 3 out of 4. Okay, so that would mean that I have 3 pieces out of 4. So if I went back to my circle and I had my 4 pieces, that would mean that I had 3 out of 4. So you see how I ate 3 out of 4 pieces? Okay, so that's how we're going to be looking at fractions. Okay, now it is really important to know that a fraction is just an extension of division. Okay, so I'm really taking 3 divided by 4. Okay, and can I take 3 divided by 4 in the sense that we're used to? Can I take 3 things and put them into my 4 circles? This one would be left blank, wouldn't it? Okay, so that's why we look at kind of partial, where it's not an entire piece anymore or a whole number, it's broken into chunks, okay? So that's why we have these equal pieces. Now it's really, really important when we're making a fraction that you do not cut them so they aren't the same. Okay, so a circle can never be divided like this because these two pieces are not going to be as much or the same amount as these pieces here in the middle. Okay, so we have to make sure that if we're doing a circle, we always cut it this way. Okay. All right, now we've done several examples in class and on this video of cutting a circle, but I'm going to show you the really, really easy way to do a fraction, and it's called a fraction strip. And this is going to be the best way, and it's going to be the one that you're going to want to use all year. And so how we make this fraction strip is you're just going to draw a really kind of long, narrow, like strip of paper, okay? And if I want to represent the fraction, we're going to start really easy. 1/2, or 1 out of 2, okay? 1/2. What I'm going to do is I have to look at my denominator first, okay? So I'm going to look here at my denominator, and I'm going to see how many parts do I need to break my strip into. If you said 2, you're absolutely correct. So I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces, okay? So I have 1 piece, and I have 2 pieces. All right, now I'm going to then go up to my numerator and look, and how many of those am I going to color in? If you said 1, you're absolutely correct. So I'm going to color in, and it's kind of hard to be neat on this, but I expect that you are being neat. Okay, I'm going to color in 1 out of my half. Now it's going to be really, really important that you make sure that you color your half point here. Do you see how I'm being really, really meticulous? Okay, because that's going to be how we can compare fractions later on. And we're going to be having to do that a lot. So let's get into the habit now of making sure that we're coloring basically our borders really, really carefully. Okay, does that make sense? All right, let's go ahead and do, so this time I want you to color 2, let's get a pen going, 2/4. Okay, you can also write it like this, 2 out of 4. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my strip, and I'm going to be really neat. And now, how many pieces do I need to cut my strip into? I'm going to look at my denominator, and I have 4 pieces. So let me give you a hint. If it's an even number, like 4, you're going to cut it right in half the first time. The whole thing's going to be cut in half. Okay? And what is half of 4? If I take 4, what 2 numbers can I add together and they're the same number and I get 4? What doubles fact? 2. So I'm going to break each of these sides into 2. And now I have my 4 pieces. Okay? So I've done my 4. How many of those am I going to color? I look at my numerator and it becomes 2. So I'm going to color 2 of my pieces. Okay? So there's my 2/4. All right, so now you're going to do one example on your own, and then we'll check it when we get back to class. So your example that I'd like for you to work on while you're practicing at home is 3/8. Okay, and notice I don't say 3/8. Okay, it's 3/8. Okay, and we will practice what all those words are. However, I do want you to get into the habit of making sure that it's the th sound after eighths. Okay. And as always, I won't leave you without sharing a joke with you. I want to know which weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of bricks? So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that, and we will discuss it on Wednesday in class. Thank you.